In our last episode, we spoke about why space matters, exploring the different ways that we use space technologies every day. In this episode, we take a closer look at how space technologies are being used to solve some of the biggest challenges that we face on Earth and the unique challenges we face here in Australia. First Nations people understand the importance of caring for country, and now space technologies are playing a big part in how we care for sky, sea and land, whether it be to manage the impact of climate change on our oceans, improving our ability to respond to natural disasters, or to help us with the planning and development of cities and towns. In this episode, not only will you hear how they address these challenges, but also how they are improving health outcomes for people in remote areas, an important issue for First Nations people. You'll also hear from a guest from the Australian Space Agency who'll talk more about how space technologies offer solutions for these challenges. So, welcome to the third episode of our space series. Space has the answers.
Welcome back to our series with the Australian Space Agency. In our last segment, we spoke about the different ways we use space tech every day. Today, we're going to talk about the other benefits that we get from these technologies and how they're helping us address big challenges we face on our planet. One of the ways space can improve our lives is by transforming remote medicine and improving the health and well-being of our remote communities. As we spoke about last week, satellite communications are vital for people in remote areas, providing them with access to reliable remote communication. But out in these remote communities, you might also be hundreds of kilometers away from the nearest hospital or medical treatment facility. So these communication satellites also provide communities with access to telemedicine services and to doctors when people require urgent medical attention. The space sector has a unique expertise in remote medicine. They've had to come up with innovative ways to provide health support and deliver medical treatment to astronauts while they're hundreds of kilometers away in space. It's common that these technologies that are developed for space to later be used on Earth. So these innovative technologies that are helping astronauts could also benefit remote health here at home. Important experiments are also being conducted in space that could bring significant medical breakthroughs. So, it's clear that space offers a wide range of benefits to our personal health, and space can also improve our ability to care for the health of our planet. First Nations people know the importance of caring for country and have developed over 60,000 years of scientific knowledge that guides our role as custodians or traditional owners. Western science is turning to space to help manage the environment, and as our climate changes, we rely on space technologies to understand the environmental impact of these changes and how to manage them. Take the oceans, for example. Images provided by satellites up in orbit give us a unique view of our seas. You can also combine this with data that you get from sensors that are on the ground, which are called in situ sensors, and provide real-time data on water quality. By combining this data, you're able to get really great insights into marine ecosystems. This can help by monitoring sea life population, provide valuable data for climate research, and even help understand the impacts of climate change, such as coral bleaching. Space also helps us manage the environmental impact of our growing human population. As our population grows, so too does our traffic, our pollution, and our need for infrastructure and housing. Space technologies provide key insights to inform this urban planning and ensure we're able to monitor and reduce the impact that we've been having on the environment. Space can also help us with natural disasters. The data we get from satellites can help us predict extreme weather and catastrophic events, allowing us to better prepare for them. Satellite communications and images taken by satellites also help us respond to natural disasters by keeping us up to date about what's happening on the ground so that we can better direct our resources. So you can see that space provides a lot of answers to some of the biggest challenges we face here on Earth. I caught up with Fabian Saunders to learn more. You're tuned into Tiba Radio, your voice in the bush, and today on the line we have a very special guest, Fabian Saunders from the Australian Space Agency. He's going to be talking to us about who he is and his journey towards working with the Australian Space Agency. So hello, Fabian.
G'day, John. How are you, mate? Yeah, my name's Fabian Saunders. I'm a proud Indigenous man with family connections with the Jawoyn people in Katherine across the top end, but also with the Narangga Nation down in the Yorke Peninsula in South Australia. But, my mum was adopted, so I grew up in the big cities, well, if you can call Adelaide that, but also in Sydney as well. But I've been on a bit of a cultural journey myself, just trying to sort of reconnect with my heritage and my culture. But as I said, I spend most of my time in Adelaide on Kaurna country, which is where I live now, and I've been working with the agency for about 5 years. So had a bit of an unusual path into the space sector. I was working just a few office jobs out of high school and then found myself working in the finance sector for about 5 or 6 years and saw an opportunity at the Australian Space Agency and was fortunate enough to get it. So been here for 5 years now, but recently moved into the First Nations engagement team within the agency, which was stood up about 18 months ago, and have really found a passion, to try and become a champion for First Nations people within the public service. And as I said before, it's been great for my own cultural journey as well, getting to work, people like yourself in the Tabor mob, and just trying to reconnect with community.
So we've spoken already about some of the ways that space technologies are helping us care for our planet, but could you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we've spoken about during the series, we use these technologies from space every day, to check the weather, use the GPS on our phones, or when we're using satellite communications to stay connected out in remote areas. But as you touched on, these technologies are also being used to help us address some pretty significant challenges that we face on Earth. We only have to turn on the news these days to see the natural disasters that we're facing around our continent at the moment, whether it's the floods up in North Queensland, the bushfires that we had in the Grampians and down in Tasmania, or the tropical cyclones even that we had in Western Australia. And space technologies are playing a big part in how we respond to these disasters. They help us coordinate evacuations, provide remote communications, locate distress beacons, and find water for firefighters. Big one is Earth observation satellites, which are satellites that essentially take photos of our planet, and they can show us what's happening on the ground, which helps us prepare and respond to natural disasters. Now, you take Cyclone Yassi, for example, which was one of Queensland's most powerful cyclones. The data that we got from satellites helped local departments alert and evacuate those at risk and supported emergency services to direct resources where they were needed most. So despite that being one of the most dangerous cyclones we've had, there was only one death recorded. Now, obviously any loss of life is tragic, but given the threat that the cyclone posed, I think we were fortunate that there weren't more, and, space technologies contributed to that. And for me, this is where I see a huge opportunity. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have been caring for country for over 60,000 years and possess an enormous amount of cultural and scientific knowledge. If we're able to approach this in the right way, we might be fortunate enough to gain access to some of this knowledge. And when that's combined with the power of space technologies, I think that puts us in a really strong position to improve our response to these types of challenges.
That's exactly right. How can space technologies be used to benefit First Nations people more?
Yeah, great question. As we've touched on previously, satellites provide reliable communications for people out in remote communities to stay connected. But this also allows people to access critical services, such as healthcare. So people out in remote areas, they might not have a doctor's or a hospital close by, but satellite communications provides them with access to, a GP, emergency services, or even, mental health support and so on. As technology also continues to develop, such as virtual reality, for example, we're also finding new and innovative ways to improve health outcomes for people in remote communities. And the space sector also has a unique expertise in remote health. When you have astronauts, hundreds of kilometres away on the International Space Station, you need to be pretty good at providing medical treatment remotely or, even responding to an emergency. And I think the lessons that we learn from that can obviously be applied to remote areas here on Earth. And in addition, space also provides a unique environment for research and development. So the extreme microgravity environment in space provides us with a unique testing environment that is difficult to replicate on Earth. So you find medical research and experiments are now actually being conducted in space. And these new medical technologies, such as monitoring systems, for example, are being tested on places like the International Space Station before they make their way back to our hospitals. So these important experiments are being conducted in space and could bring significant medical breakthroughs and address challenges on our planet. So I think there's a huge opportunity for the expertise and the technology that we develop in space to benefit First Nations people, particularly in remote areas.
What is your experience at the Australian Space Agency or in the space sector as a First Nations Australian Indigenous?
Look, it's been really good. Like, the experience of working with the Space Agency alone is something, really, really incredible. We've had rockets launched from Australia. We've got a space sector in Australia that's really growing, and sometimes you've got to pinch yourself that, you're fortunate enough to work in this environment. But as a First Nations person, it's particularly over the last 18 months, it's been extremely valuable. As I said before, we've seen the establishment of the First Nations engagement team, and we're really focused on inspiring First Nations people on the opportunities in space and, the benefits that space could provide First Nations people. But in addition to that, as I've sort of touched on, the benefits that First Nations people can provide to the space sector. I think the 60,000 years of cultural and scientific knowledge that First Nations people possess is extremely valuable. And as I said, if we approach that in the right way, I think, it'd be fantastic to gain access to some of that. So being able to work on that over the past 18 months has been fantastic, obviously from a personal perspective, on my own cultural journey, but, also contributing to that sort of broader objectives has been, fantastic.
Oh, that's amazing to hear. Thank you very much, Fabian Saunders from the Australian Space Agency, for speaking with myself and everybody out there on the TIBA network and letting us know all the wonderful things happening in space.
Thanks very much for having me, John, and thanks everyone for tuning in. I really appreciate the work that TIBA do and looking forward to the rest of the series.
Thanks for tuning in. Over these last 3 episodes, we hope we've been able to give you a better understanding of what space is and how space tech is being used by us every day in helping us respond to some pretty big challenges. If you want to know more about what you heard today, we will post some links on our social media to the Australian Space Agency's website, where you can find out more information. In the next episode, we're going to take a look at some of Australia's key contributions in space and show that even though we've got a growing sector, Australia has a rich space history and is doing some exciting things right now. Until next time.